George Russell is alive, but in the Gilded Age, survival is only the beginning of the drama. The final episode of season 3, titled My Mind is Made Up, promises an hour and 10 minutes of high stakes decisions, broken alliances, and shocking revelations that will shake Newport and New York society to its core. We've seen Bertha rise from social outsider to a force who can challenge Mrs. Astor herself. But this finale won't just be about her victory. It will be about who gets to stand beside her when the music stops and the ballroom doors close. This is where every whispered conversation, every stolen glance, and every calculated snub from the season comes together in one explosive night. And make no mistake, just because George is breathing doesn't mean he's safe. When the gun was fired in episode 7, it felt like the entire Russell empire trembled. In that moment, George's fate wasn't just about whether one man lived or died, it was about whether the foundation of Bertha's carefully built world would collapse. But as we step into episode 8, the question shifts from will George survive to what will George do now? He returns home, not to his office, not to a hospital bed far away, but to 61st Street, where Bertha is waiting. The trailer made it clear. This wasn't the end of George Russell. And yet, the blood on Marion's dress is proof enough that danger was close. Too close. William, the doctor, is already nearby, crossing from the Van Ryn house to save him. It's quick thinking. But in this world, even a miracle can come with a price. And yet, as George recovers, the ball looms. It's a cruel contrast. While George is still regaining his strength, Bertha's focus is on the social event of the season. But this isn't neglect. It's strategy. Bertha knows that power is perception, and nothing says Russell dominance like hosting the Newport Ball with poise, glamour, and an unshaken smile. The truth is, the ball is more than a party. It's a declaration to every rival in the room. The Russells are untouchable. That's why, in spite of the shooting, in spite of the whispers, Bertha isn't wearing black. She's wearing victory, deep green silk and red accents that command the room. But the calm doesn't last. Behind the flawless gowns and champagne toasts, unresolved tensions swirl like shadows in candlelight. Hector and Gladys are back in the spotlight, their dance at the ball sending waves of speculation through the crowd. Will George see it as a betrayal or as a sign to reconcile with his daughter's choices? Larry's role in saving George's business might push his father toward forgiveness, or it might remind George of how fragile alliances can be, even within a family. And then there's Marion, caught between loyalty to her family and her own heart. This finale won't just decide the Russells' social standing, it will decide whether Marion and Larry find their way back to each other or let pride keep them apart forever. And that's the beauty of the Gilded Age's storytelling. Every victory comes with a shadow, every smile hides a calculation. The shooting may be over, but the war for influence is just beginning. In this final chapter of the season, every character walks into the Newport Ball with a goal, a secret, and a line they may or may not be willing to cross. And when the clock strikes midnight, not everyone will walk out a winner. If there is one thing Bertha Russell has proven this season, it's that she can turn scandal into strategy and resistance into an open door. But in the finale, her gamble is bolder than ever. The decision to allow divorced women into the Newport Ball isn't just an act of rebellion, it's a direct challenge to the rules that Mrs. Astor has guarded for decades. On the surface, it looks like an invitation decision, but in truth, it's a declaration of independence. Bertha is telling the old guard that she will no longer play by their rules. She will make the rules. And the stakes could not be higher, because this move will be remembered long after the final waltz. For Mrs. Astor, it's a calculated insult, one she cannot ignore. For Bertha, it's the perfect opportunity to prove that the future belongs to those bold enough to rewrite tradition. The clash over the guest list is more than a disagreement. It's a test of loyalty. Allies and rivals alike will have to pick a side. Mrs. Fish, ever the unpredictable player in this game, chooses to attend the ball despite Mrs. Astor's disapproval, and that single decision shifts the balance. It signals to the rest of society that Bertha's invitation is worth accepting, even if it means risking the wrath of the Queen of Old New York. But Bertha isn't just thinking about appearances, she's thinking about alliances. Oscar's request to let Mrs. Winterton in, despite their strained history, is a move that forces Bertha to weigh personal grudges against political gain. Letting Mrs. Winterton attend isn't a gesture of kindness, it's a demonstration of power. She is showing everyone that she can rise above pettiness when it serves her empire. Yet even as Bertha consolidates her influence, there is a current of tension in every interaction. Gladys, now a duchess, is by her side, greeting guests with poise, but not without a flicker of uncertainty. The Duke stands close, smiling for the crowd, but the question lingers. Does he love Gladys for who she is, or for the fortune she brings? For Bertha, the optics of a happy marriage are as valuable as gold, but she knows better than anyone that appearances can be deceiving. One wrong move, one whispered rumor, and the respect she's fought for could crumble overnight. Meanwhile, Mrs. Astor is not the only opponent watching Bertha's every step. The eyes of the room are sharp, and every guest knows that this ball is about far more than dancing. This is a battlefield dressed in velvet and lit by crystal chandeliers, where the true currency is influence. The gowns and jewels may sparkle, but behind every smile is a calculation. Who to greet warmly, who to snub, and who to corner in conversation for an advantage. Bertha moves through the room like a general inspecting her troops, her head held high, each introduction and each toast a deliberate act of positioning. But the gamble comes with risk. If the night ends in triumph, Bertha will have solidified her place at the very top of society, untouchable by even Mrs. Astor herself. If it ends in scandal, she could find herself shut out of the very world she fought so hard to enter. And that's what makes this finale so electric. Every moment at the Newport Ball feels like it could be the one that changes everything. The music may be sweet, the laughter genuine, but beneath it all is the unspoken truth. In the Gilded Age, victory is never permanent, and the higher you rise, the greater the fall if you stumble. For all the glittering gowns and polished smiles, the Gilded Age has always been about people, about hearts torn between desire and duty, about lives shaped by the invisible strings of reputation and expectation. In the finale, Peggy Scott's story cuts through the noise like a raw, unpolished truth. While Bertha battles for dominance in the marble halls of Newport, Peggy fights a quieter but no less brutal war, one for her dignity, her happiness, and her place in a world determined to measure her worth by the weight of her past. When William steps into Peggy's life, there is a glimmer of hope. Hope that love might finally win out over gossip, prejudice, and the endless need to prove oneself. But that hope is fragile, because the truth, once revealed, can either set people free or shatter them completely. In the days leading up to the ball, William learns what his mother whispered to him was no lie. Peggy does not deny her past, nor does she soften the truth to make it more palatable. She meets it head-on, standing as the woman she is now, stronger, wiser, unwilling to shrink to fit someone else's comfort. But honesty is a double-edged sword, and in the rarefied air of Gilded Age society, even the smallest shadow can become a scandal. William listens, but his silence speaks louder than words. He doesn't immediately end things, but there's a distance, a pause that feels colder than outright rejection. The planned evening together at the ball dissolves before it begins, replaced by the awkward reality of meeting in the same space, but not as a couple. Peggy walks into the Black Elite Ball with her head high, surrounded by friends and family, but the glint in her eye is different. More guarded, more aware of how fragile even the most promising romance can be when tested against societal pressure. William is there too, moving through the crowd with the kind of discomfort that makes it clear he's still deciding if his heart can withstand what his reputation might not. Dorothy, Peggy's mother, watches her daughter with the kind of protective love that simmers into something sharper when she thinks of the Van Ryns, and in particular, Elizabeth. For too long, the unspoken snobbery of old money has gone unchallenged, but in the finale, Dorothy may be the one to break the silence. The trailer hints at a confrontation, and while the details are hidden in the quick cuts of edited footage, the emotion is unmistakable. This isn't about one slight, it's about years of quiet humiliation, of seeing Peggy treated as less than what she is. And if Dorothy does unleash her fury on Elizabeth, it will be a rare and satisfying moment where the old order is forced to look itself in the mirror. While Peggy navigates heartbreak and the subtle politics of the ball, Marian finds herself at her own emotional crossroads. Her engagement to Larry was once the talk of their circle, a union that seemed inevitable, even destined. But pride, misunderstandings, and the ever-watchful eyes of society tore them apart before they could even set a date. Now, in the flickering candlelight of the Newport Ball, surrounded by the music and the murmurs of 100 conversations, Marian has to decide whether her mind is truly made up or if there's still room for forgiveness. Larry has changed since their split, not in the fundamental charm and drive that drew Marian to him in the first place, but in his understanding of what it means to fight for something worth keeping. His role in helping George through his recent crisis hasn't gone unnoticed, and it's softened the edges of how the Russell family sees him. Even Bertha, whose approval has often felt like a locked door, might now be willing to open it for Marian's sake. The question is whether Marian can see past the hurt of the past to imagine a future with him again. Jack's confession that nothing happened at the Haymarket removes the shadow that once hung over Larry's name, but trust is not built on facts alone. It's built on choosing to believe in someone even when the facts are unclear. The finale frames Marian and Larry's interactions with a deliberate tenderness. They speak in the language of glances and small smiles, of half-finished sentences where the meaning lives between the words. Around them, the ball moves forward, dancers twirling, glasses clinking, but in those moments, it feels as if the world has narrowed to just the two of them. Marian's choice will not only decide her future, but will also be a symbolic act in a season defined by whether people cling to the past or embrace change. And yet, even in the warmth of possible reconciliation, there are dangers lurking. Oscar, ever the opportunist, weaves his own threads through the evening. His request to Bertha on behalf of Mrs. Winterton may seem like a small subplot, but Oscar is not a man who moves without purpose. Every introduction, every gesture of courtesy is a calculated investment in his own position. At a ball where alliances can shift with a single conversation, Oscar's moves could create ripples that touch not only Bertha, but also Marian and Larry's standing in society. Gladys, too, finds herself walking a delicate line. As a duchess, she commands a certain respect, but the whispers about the Duke's intentions follow her like a shadow. She smiles, she plays the part, but beneath the surface, there's a quiet fear. What if her marriage is nothing more than a transaction dressed in love's clothing? When she and Hector share a moment on the dance floor, it's not just about two people enjoying a waltz. It's about the collision between duty and desire, about the small rebellions that can bloom in the unlikeliest places. If George sees it, his reaction could either fracture the family or bring long-needed reconciliation. The Newport Ball becomes, in this way, a mirror for the season as a whole. Every storyline converges here, every unspoken question demanding an answer before the night is over. Will William choose Peggy, or will he let the weight of expectation crush what they could have had? Will Marian and Larry step back into the warmth of engagement, or will they part for good? Will Gladys's marriage stand as a triumph or a trap? And will Bertha's victory over Mrs. Astor be absolute, or will the Queen of Old New York find a way to remind everyone that she still holds influence in the shadows? These questions hang in the air like the final notes of a waltz, lingering long after the music stops. But in true Gilded Age fashion, the answers will not be simple. Every choice made in this final hour will carry the weight of seasons past and the potential to shape whatever comes next. And while Julian Fellows may have written this season with the possibility that it could be the last, the ending promises that even if the curtain falls on these characters for now, their stories of ambition, love, betrayal, and survival will echo long after the guests have left the ballroom and the chandeliers have gone dark. The Newport Ball is in full swing now, a spectacle of wealth and willpower. The crystal chandeliers cast their golden light across a sea of gowns and jewels, each shimmer and sparkle hiding motives as sharp as cut glass. The orchestra plays without pause, filling the air with the swell of strings and the steady beat of measured steps. But while the music is sweet, the undercurrent of the night is anything but gentle. This is not merely a celebration, it is a reckoning. Every character present knows it. They can feel it in the glances exchanged across the room, in the way conversations lower when certain figures pass, in the subtle shifts of alliances forming right there on the marble floor. Bertha moves through it all like a monarch holding court. Her gown, a deep commanding green trimmed in red, pulls every gaze in the room, but it is her poise that captures the true attention. She speaks to Mrs. Fish with a smile that suggests they have both won something tonight, even if only one of them will admit it aloud. She exchanges cool pleasantries with Mrs. Astor, the words polite, but the meaning razor sharp. The message is clear. Bertha Russell has not only entered the upper echelons of society, she has redefined them. Her victory is cemented by the presence of those who, just a season ago, would have dismissed her entirely. And yet, Bertha knows better than to relax. The higher she climbs, the more determined her enemies will be to drag her down. George, though still recovering, makes an appearance that is equal parts personal triumph and political necessity. He stands beside Bertha, a silent yet powerful statement that the Russells remain unshaken. Those who had hoped the shooting might weaken their grip on influence are forced to swallow their disappointment. His handshake is firm, his nods deliberate, and though his steps are slower, his presence is enough to dispel any doubt about his strength. He watches Gladys and Hector from a distance, his expression unreadable. It is a moment Marion notices too, though she is wise enough not to comment. In George's eyes, forgiveness is earned, not given freely, and whether Gladys has earned his blessing remains uncertain. Across the room, Peggy and William's paths cross at last. The setting could not be more public, nor the tension more private. They stand close enough for their voices to be low, yet their conversation feels like it echoes in Peggy's chest. William admits he needs time, that he is struggling to reconcile the woman he has come to care for with the past he has been taught to see as scandal. Peggy listens, her spine straight, her voice calm, but there is a flicker of pain that no composure can entirely hide. She does not plead. She will not plead. If William cannot see that her worth is greater than the judgment of others, then his absence will hurt, but it will not break her. The dance between them ends before it begins, and Peggy turns away, her head held high, the picture of dignity even in disappointment. Dorothy, meanwhile, has not forgotten her own grievances. When the moment presents itself, she approaches Elizabeth with the kind of civility that can cut deeper than open hostility. Their exchange is brief but charged, Dorothy reminding Elizabeth with carefully chosen words that the world is changing, and those who cling too tightly to their prejudice will find themselves on the wrong side of history. It is not a scene that draws much attention from the wider room, but for those who witness it, the meaning is unmistakable. The days when certain voices could go unchallenged are ending. In another corner, Marion and Larry find themselves momentarily alone. The glow of the chandelier softens the space between them, and for a moment, the noise of the ball fades. Larry speaks first, not with grand declarations, but with quiet sincerity. He admits his mistakes, not as excuses, but as truths he cannot change. Marion listens, torn between the walls she has built and the memory of the man who once made her believe they could face the world together. Jack's earlier confession still lingers in her mind, the knowledge that the scandal which drove them apart was never what it seemed. And then, in the simplest of moments, perhaps a shared smile, perhaps the offer of a dance, Marion makes her choice. The dance they share is unremarkable to anyone watching, just another couple moving in time with the music. But for them, it is everything. It is a quiet reconciliation, an agreement without words that what lies ahead may be uncertain, but it is worth facing together. Even Agnes, watching from across the floor, allows herself the smallest of approving nods. For all her sternness, she understands that sometimes love is a risk worth taking. As the night deepens, the threads of each storyline begin to pull tight. Oscar's presence with Mrs. Winterton is noted by many, though few can guess the full extent of his intentions. Some see an act of gallantry, others a calculated move towards something greater. The Duke and Gladys continue to play their part, the Duchess smiling as though the weight of her new title is nothing at all. Whether the smile hides doubt or not, only she knows. Bertha takes one final turn through the room, ensuring every guest feels her presence before the night ends. She has won this round, there is no denying it. The divorced women have mingled without scandal consuming the evening, Mrs. Astor has been forced to share the stage, and the Russells leave stronger than they arrived. Yet in her heart, Bertha understands that this is not the end of her battles. The Gilded Age is not a story of permanent victories. It is a constant struggle to hold on to what one has gained. For every triumph, there will be another challenge, another rival waiting for the moment to strike. As the orchestra plays its final piece, couples drift toward the exit, the laughter of the night fading into the cool air outside. In the carriage rides home, there will be whispers about who danced with whom, about who looked too happy or not happy enough, about the quiet moments no one was supposed to see. The night will be remembered differently by each guest, but all will agree on one thing. Something shifted at the Newport Ball. Lines were crossed, loyalties tested, and the old order bent just enough to let the new one through. And when the chandeliers are dimmed, when the servants begin to clear the last of the glasses, Bertha stands alone for a moment in the grand room she has filled. Her gown still gleams, her shoulders are still square, but in the stillness, she allows herself a single breath of exhaustion. She has fought for every inch of this victory, and she knows the fight will begin again tomorrow. But tonight, for just a moment, she can stand in the silence and know that she has won. For Peggy, for Marion, for Gladys, and even for George, the future remains uncertain. Love may falter, alliances may shift, and fortunes may change. But as the final chapter of this season closes, one truth remains. The Gilded Age belongs to those who dare to shape it. And as long as there are balls to host and empires to build, the Russells will not simply survive. They will rule.